Okay, Penina Shtauber, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am great, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know.
you're dealing well with the pandemic of the century.
Yeah, I mean, like, I go on walks so that I breathe some fresh air every now and then
This is good.
between Zoom conversations and stuff.
It's such a
Yeah.
crazy world, right?
Yeah. Also, like, this technology is driving me crazy. Like, it's
Why?
great, but it's also, I get stressed out from it. I don't know.
It definitely, the relationships are different. I feel like there's a kind of a wall up that we don't get
Yeah, yeah,
to be together in the same way. Anyway,
yeah.
1 second, sorry.
Like, even eye contact. Like, we could see each other, but we can never make eye contact. That's weird.
I know. Yeah, and it's hard to get that interactive feeling when we're, together in a group.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
okay, we'll do the
Yeah.
best we can, Penina. It's great to see you. I've
Yeah.
got I've got my copy right here.
Oh, so exciting. I need to
I'm
get my
very
copy.
excited.
Okay, whatever you have one.
I have one. I have one. So just a little bit of a bio. So just to give people who don't know you, some of the group I see who are on here are students and have got the chance to meet you and interact with you, but some haven't. So just a little bio here. Penina Shtauber was born in Brooklyn, New York, and she moved to Israel with her family when she was 12 years old. Currently, she studies art at Bezalel, which is where we know each other. Had the great pleasure of having you involved in our programming over the last, is it 2 years now, 2.5 years?
Started, I think 2.5. Yeah. Wow.
Unbelievable. Wow, it's amazing, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Love having you around. And Penina has vast hobbies, including hiking, traveling, writing, and art. I've had the chance to see your art exhibit, which is really cool as well. So it's amazing to be able to see all your different artistic expressions, your writing, your other art that you do in Bezalel, and amazing. You're just an awesome young woman, and so much to talk
Thank
about.
you.
Um, but this book should have hashtag should have crisis.
Hold on, I have to run and get my copy.
Okay. While Penina is going and getting her copy, um, I'll just read what the bio is about the book. You can find it on Amazon. Oh, there it is. Okay, good. We know that you have it there.
Yay.
Okay, good.
I know,
It
it
should be
feels
well
more
worn.
like, yeah, I could just go like this. Woo.
Exactly. Any point you want to just, publicity flash, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not sure what to say.
Let me check.
Hide behind my book.
So this is what it says on Amazon when you read it there. It says, like any world that has stereotypes, we've got the stingy guy and the superficial girl, the too religious, the not religious enough, and everything in between. Those who are in it because they want to, and those who are in it because their moms made them. And the moms do get a fairly full and pretty hilarious treatment here throughout the different stories. And mostly, just to continue here, and mostly we've got the pressure on all ends. Definitely a lot of parental pressure. Basically, it's a lot of fun, a lot of tears, a lot of arguments, and some love. I'm sure you'll relate. I do like that because no matter if someone is in the shidduch dating world or not, I think there's some universal kind of dating or interpersonal relationship stuff that the book has been able to touch on, and that I think kind of crosses over just the very specific group that you're talking about. But we'll get there. I love the book. I read a story or two, I think, initially before I got the book, and then I read it, and then I made my wife read it, and we're both English majors, and I wouldn't say we're snobby English majors, but we're English majors. We have masters in English, and it's very well done. It's really, really enjoyable. We just want to keep reading more and more and more. I will say that I was hoping for some point to get to the end before I got to the end for a happy ending, like a Hollywood happy ending. And there really wasn't that. I want to talk more about that as well, but I just want to pause now before I say more about the book and give those who have not had a chance to read it or to see any of your comic or artwork about it, just to hear a little bit from you about the book. So would you just mind reading a passage from the book from us to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I'll read. Hold on. I'll read a short one. The Difficult Church.
We're not going anywhere. We have got nowhere to go. So.
I'll read a long one too. Okay, so I'll read it 16 because that like really touches upon the parent pressure thing. My parents knew his parents. My parents knew his parents. They went to the same fundraisers and bar mitzvahs with overlapping friend circles. He was a boy from the neighborhood after all. Such a wonderful boy, my mother said. Miriam says he helps around the house. He sweeps the floors after the Shabbos meal. You don't know how important it is to have a husband that helps out. She smiled at my father tightly. My father ignored her. They just donated a new Keser Torah to the shul. Must have cost $1,000, maybe $2,000. It was settled then. I would go out with Ari Cohen. Our first date was standard. He looked okay, a little scrawny, but well dressed. And he seemed well thought out, too. I'm not into all these modern thoughts and ideas, he said. Women don't understand their place anymore. I haven't heard those secular women let their leg hair grow out long. He took a deep breath. At least you Orthodox women have more sense. I thought of my silky shaven legs and sighed in relief, even though it was hidden under pantyhose and under the table. Sometimes I'd forget to shave for a few days. All my married friends, grimacing at my spiky leg brushed against them, would tell me, don't worry, once you're married, you'll remember. At least my eyebrows, the part of me he could see, were definitely tweezed and preened to perfection. I never let them get out of hand. It really grosses me out, I agreed. At home, my parents gushed. He said great things about you. This may be the one. Our second date was pleasant, if but a bit short. We got drinks again in a lounge. It was just starting to get comfortable and remove my jacket when Ari looked at his watch and jumped. We gotta go. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize the time. He threw his jacket on and paid for our drinks at the counter. I followed close behind him, nearly tripping over my heels. He strode onto the street. I was a few feet behind him, struggling to keep up. Once inside the lot, he disappeared completely. I walked down one row, trying to recall where he had parked. Helplessly. Earlier, I just let him open the door for me and lead the way. 5 whole minutes, I walked back and forth in my heels. My feet killed, my head hurt, and my eyes started prickling. That's it? He'd just leave me here? Someone called my name. I looked up. Come on, Ari said, from down the row of cars. What happened? I walked as fast as I could without getting too flustered and let myself inside the car. What happened? I repeated his question. What happened to you? You disappeared. I told you to come, he sighed. And then I spent 20 minutes looking for you around this parking lot for you. Whatever, you weren't fast enough. We missed it anyways. Missed what? Our first hour had free parking. He shook his head. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I was so furious. All I wanted to do was to go home and kick off these stupid heels. I burst. So I'll pay. As I said it, I realized I only had $4 on me, and I had no idea how much parking could cost. He looked taken aback. Don't be silly. Outside my house, he said goodnight and told me that he had a nice time. I nodded once and closed the door. The next day, my parents told me the news. He really likes you. I didn't know this was going so well. Don't be scared to get excited. They grinned. I wasn't scared of anything. The third day, we went to a cute cafe. Are you hungry? He asked. I hadn't eaten all day. Not really, I lied. Okay, great, he said, and chose a salad from the menu. He told the waiter, bring 2 plates with it. The salad was nice and topped with fried mushrooms. I am allergic to mushrooms. I took a small forkful into my plate and picked out the mushrooms. Then I moved the lettuce to one side of my plate as we spoke, sipped water, moved the lettuce to the other side. We spoke about our parents and siblings. I told him about my nieces and nephews. I don't connect as much to the babies, but once they're older, I'm definitely their favorite aunt. You don't like babies? Ari froze mid-bite. Of course I like babies. I tried to fix my mess up. I love babies. I just get along well with kids, you know? He nodded carefully. I could tell he was choosing his words carefully, and I was sitting tight and nervous. I just want to make this clear, he started. I want to have a big family, and I want a wife that could handle that, you know? On the spot, I nearly cried. What he said made sense. Of course, he wanted a motherly wife. I had to be that motherly wife. So instead of crying, I nodded. Of course, I want a big family too. He smiled at me, and I exhaled with relief. How was it? My parents asked when I got home. I shrugged and went to the bathroom to take off my makeup, shower, and shave my legs. In the morning, they answered their own question. It's going great! The next day, we went out on a picnic. He told me to make something for the two of us to eat, a surprise, something yummy. I stayed up all night preparing the basket, even glue gunning little bows on the side for decoration. My father thought it was overdone. My mother thought it was perfect. What mattered was what Ari thought. He took a bite of the sandwich and said, "This is good." I beamed. "Did you bring more mustard?" He dug through the basket, giving up after a minute, his face falling into an unimpressed look. How could I have forgotten extra condiments? It was such a basic mistake. He shook his head, said it was fine, and we spoke about other things. The next day, he told me his parents wanted to meet me. When, tonight? Well, I'm sure you'd want to dress up a bit, no? We can meet the next time. At home, my parents cheered. This really is the next step, my mother gleamed. When can we meet him, my father asked. The problem started after we met each other's parents. My parents loved him. His parents liked me. And all of a sudden, Ari wanted to speak about engagement. It was the next step after all. The thing was, and it was hard to admit it until this point, I wasn't feeling as excited as I wanted to feel. Once in a lifetime decision and all that, you know? This isn't good, my mother said to my father. Our daughter is confused. And to me, it's normal to be nervous, but you can't always run away from commitment. She has to speak to someone. A dating coach will set her straight. Such a fine boy, he muttered to himself. Her name was Mindy, and she lived 15 minutes away, an hour with traffic. I sat in her cramped living room as she prepared tea for us. So what's the problem? She said finally. I thought I'd feel more excited. I told her about him, about all of our dates. She paused thoughtfully. It sounds like you have a good basis with him. Let me ask you, you think dating is going to be like the movies? When I didn't answer, she pressed. You think you're going to magically fall in love? No. Good, because that's just made up. It's called infatuation. It's not a Jewish thing. We believe that love grows over time. I nodded. I won't tell you what to do, but I can tell you that people aren't disposable. A good connection doesn't always come around so easily. Ari proposed to me the following Thursday. He said he found a woman fit to be his wife. At the engagement party, my parents said they found a boy fit to be their son-in-law.
I love it. Every story is just, there's so much to unpack there. And but I have a few more general questions that I want to get into. But that was great because it gave people a really an overview of the book, which is, sorry I didn't say this before, but it's a collection of short stories. These are fictional stories. I do want to find out, to what extent they're fictional in a moment, or how much you're able to reveal about that. But just to, give us a general idea of where you came up for the idea for the book. Where did this come from?
It was actually quite random. Like I was in a writing class last year, and my teacher said, asked everyone their names in the first class, and she was saying how everyone's last names and names says something about them. Like, oh, your last name became Hebrew. Oh, so it said something about your family that moved. And then she said, oh, what's your name? Penina. Why do you have an old lady name? She asked me. And I'm like, what? Penina? It's so normal in Brooklyn. And then I realized, in Brooklyn, my name wasn't a classic American name, but it's a classic Brooklyn Jewish American name. So I realized that my reality that I grew up in is very specific. And it's not like this global Jewish reality. So I wanted to write stories from that specific place. Yeah.
So these stories, which all revolve around shidduch dating, how did you take these stories from your own from your own life, from your own experiences? Were these things that your friends came and shared with you, that they were from their experiences? These are things that you saw growing up in Brooklyn or here. It kind of seems to take place in both places, right? Both and in Brooklyn.
Yeah, Jewish geography,
Absolutely. So how much of you is in these stories?
So I feel like I was thinking of relationships that I know or people that I know, and I try to feel what's common situations that happen, or I don't know, my sister went dated a lot. I'm what are ridiculous things that happen, or if there was a common theme of things that didn't work out, or why, or so it was from observance, but the stories are made up. let's say that story that I read right now, it's completely made up, but she said when she was on a date once, he like rushed because of free parking. Like the date was under an hour and she's like, what? Like, why did we even like go to Jerusalem then? So like there are some aspects that are real, even though they sound ridiculous, but and like even
Yeah.
some things that like, or like let's say my friend said that on the first date, like even if you're hungry, you're supposed to just get a drink. So like, are you hungry? No, I'm not hungry. It's fine. It's fine. Like,
So
okay.
you kind of like have taken these details, from what you've heard and what you've been exposed to, and you kind of add a little hyperbole and mix it up, add some humor, really play up the stereotypes, and you have these great stories. And I want to say that you're very even-handed in your stereotypes, which I appreciate. In other words, it's not anti-religious guy. It's not woman who is very materialistic. It's not anti-parents. I mean, you kind of poke fun at everybody, which I think really makes the book very funny and even-handed, because you're not trying to, kind of push an agenda, so to speak, beyond exposing us to this really interesting world and obviously, playing it up with hyperbole to get a laugh. So, is that kind of in your mind as you're writing these stories? You want to just kind of poke fun at everybody, kind of show a mirror to everybody. Look how silly you are. Look how silly you are in all of this.
Yeah, like I had to make it like inclusive. Also, in order for it not to be pure criticism, like in a way, like some situations, it's not like criticism, it's the situation. But
Right.
it's important for people to see how the situation is. So it is kind of like to hold up a mirror by making the situation extreme, and like you could see who's ridiculous in the story once you read it like that. So it is like taking different situations and making them extreme. And also, yeah, I did want to take different, like it's not one community that this happens in. It is, like you said, like there are some universal aspects, but to show how it plays out in with different people in different situations.
Yeah, in that way, I think that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed the book. I don't find it deconstructive of orthodoxy or orthodox dating in that way. It's kind of like poking fun of it.
Right. Also, part of it was because, like, main part of it was to challenge censorship. Like, this happens, by the way, people think it's relatable, so it must exist. Like, don't pretend it doesn't happen. Like, whether the stories are good or bad or whatever you think of them. Like, it was just about the censorship, just talking about it.
In other words, forgetting about, a specific type of stereotype, the pushy guy or the pushy parents, in the story that you just read for us, and the kind of more passive girl who seems to be pushed into a certain situation and getting married with someone that she really doesn't feel any emotional connection to. That type of situation. It's like you're poking fun of it, but you're still on the inside of it, right? In other words, I don't sense that you're on the outside or you left that world, right? So
Right.
do you see yourself as part of this world per se?
Look, my mother still asks me why I'm not married. My father said you're 23 in a month. Like that's it. The brother older me got married, and now like I feel the pressure. Stop it.
So you're,
Yeah.
and that's great. And I do like that, and I appreciate that you're still in it as opposed to these other books. Unorthodox is a big Netflix, hit now in the book, which is in a lot of ways people kind of stepping out of that. But it's interesting that the book is able to push the limits, give voice to people who don't necessarily have a voice, poke fun at them, and still stay within the framework. I think that's something unique that you're doing here as well. Was that kind of an intention to, to make sure that you kind of didn't poke too much fun? Were there things that you?
Yeah. Also, I want it to be like a book that people actually read. My aunt said some of the stories are too extreme; it might not happen, but like I do want it to be a book that people read so that they. Like it's constructive criticism, I think, in certain senses. Like, I don't know, the girl should read it. If she relates, she'll be like, oh, I shouldn't be so passive and let my parents choose for me. The parents can read it and be like, I don't know, oh, that's the kind of parent I shouldn't be, maybe. And things like that. Like, even
or
like
exactly, I'm right, Steve.
yeah, look, they got married. They're going to be happy. Like, good for them.
Right.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they will be happy.
Yeah, and it is kind of playing on that idea that, in shidduch dating and in the Jewish world, there are certain values that are different than the world of Hollywood, than the quote unquote Western world, and we do want to champion those.
Right.
On the other hand, it can fall too much the other direction as well. We can kind of miss out on those things that are important to young people, right? Love, affection, connection, these type of things.
Yeah. I don't think anyone should give up on either. You could have it all. Also, I think part of it's also entertainment. Like you read, I don't know, like even if you don't learn anything from it, even if there's no right and wrong, I don't know.
But it definitely has a social commentary feel to it. In other words, it's very funny, and there are some times
right.
when I was reading it and my wife was in bed, and she'd already fallen asleep. I had to kind of cover my mouth. One time she put the book down. She's like, "Oh my!" She got ahead of me at a certain point because we were sharing it, and she's like, "I can't believe that one. That was the one where the guy turned out to be a homosexual, but they still ended up getting married. I don't want to give away too many of the stories, but there are some areas where you really are pushing the boundaries, but in a respectful way again.
Yeah,
I think that's great. So, and I, as I'm going through it, I think, I'm laughing and I'm enjoying it, but I think at the bottom of my heart, I'm kind of hoping that at the end of the book, we'll get one happy ending here. Just leave me something, Penina.
So the ending, that last story is quite ambivalent. They're okay.
Yeah, they're ambivalent, but none of them are what we would call, that stereotypical Hollywood happy ending. I'm just kind of curious.
I know. It's either a bad marriage, like, I don't know, you have bad feelings going into it. I don't want to give it away, but you get it after a few stories, or they just break up for a dumb reason.
Right. So I don't sense you as kind of a dark person. You seem, always smiling and happy, but I wonder if there's like a tinge of kind of being soured on the shidduch dating world because these characters don't seem to find, happiness, or maybe the paradigm of happiness that we've kind of bought into from movies isn't a fair paradigm, and maybe we should look for a different paradigm. And I feel like there's a kind of a underlying comment there that surrounds it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, like I said in my in the author's note, I wrote about happy endings and how you won't find that here. It's because I feel like you hear the happy endings. Those are stories you hear everywhere. The only thing you hear is happy stories. When someone gets divorced, maybe they say a sad story, or when someone gets married, they're like, "Oh, bad dates. Oh, but I'm married now. It's fine." So I wanted to put a voice to sad stories. I'm not a sad person, but I don't know, it's more interesting, I think.
Absolutely.
Rather than
I wonder if there's something also a bit inauthentic, especially in the world of Facebook and Instagram, the way that dating is presented, the way that marriage is presented, and through humor and hyperbole, you're kind of poking at that and showing that there are real challenges in this world, and this is another side to that, so to speak. Not what people are posting on Facebook.
Yeah, so I'm actually writing now the second book, #Shalom Bias. And one of the stories is this guy with an Instagram wife, and his sister calls him and says "Happy birthday," and he's like, "What? How'd you know it was my birthday? You remembered my birthday?" And he's like, "No, I saw your wife's post on Instagram." He's like, "What? My wife's post on Instagram? I don't have Instagram." Then he downloads Instagram, checks his wife's post. It's the most beautiful letter he's ever read in his life. But then she doesn't mention anything about his birthday to him. She's like, "Oh, happy birthday! You're getting old." Yeah.
Absolutely. We know the world of perception today is really so important. Do your friends now come to you with stories?
No, they don't.
No, because they're afraid they get written about. They end up in one of your stories. Is that why?
No, someone once told me don't ever write a story about me, or I will never speak to you again. I'm like, okay, so stop telling me interesting stories.
I thought it would be the opposite, that everyone wants to kind of come out in your next series, and you wouldn't believe this, Penina, you got to write a story about this one. No one ever calls you and tells you this thing.
Some people tell me. Yeah. Yeah, I get a few ideas. Like also people message me and stuff, and like I have good ideas now. I'm like, wow, I really have to put this in. Like I have to write them, but I don't know.
Is there another? I know
Yeah,
you mentioned Shalom Bias, and I'm looking forward to hearing from that as well. Are you putting another series of Shidduch Crisis stories out as well, or is
I
that
don't
something now?
know. Yeah, like I'm not thinking about it specifically. Like I have like two, three more ideas that I haven't touched upon that people told me like, oh, you should write about this, and I was like, oh, that's really good. Like someone said about like living in a dorm and dating and coming back to like the dorm and everyone being like, oh, what's going on? Like I don't know, like I don't feel like I touched upon everything in the book, but I wanted that.
There's still
So
some people to poke fun at, to the
yeah, yeah,
stereotypes to kind of tackle.
yeah.
Okay, great.
Also
Uh,
about like touching upon every type of person, like I want people to read it and be like, oh, my story's in this, or something I can relate to is in this. Not like, oh, okay.
they should see themselves in it, even if they're not necessarily coming from a religious or Shidduch dating perspective. Yeah, that's what
Right.
you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Or even like a story where that they relate to in some way. Like that they see, okay, that happened to me in some way. Or
Have you ever read any of these stories to a guy that you were dating?
yeah.
And what was the response?
Oh my god, he thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, okay, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Have to be able to laugh at this as well. I just want to hit
I
on,
also went out with a guy once, interesting.
yeah.
Because he read my stories on Facebook and got in touch with my friend who like he knew her brother and said like, oh my gosh, I want to go out with her. And
Oh
we went out.
wow.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was like,
And did he make it in as a story?
he said he was scared to read the book after. He's like, oh no, I'm gonna be in it. But no, no, no.
Did he make it? Okay, that's good.
No,
It's probably a good thing.
yeah, it's better. It's better that way.
Better to not be in the book. Yeah. Just to speak in general, I mean, since you wrote a book about dating and Shidduch crisis, and it is a really interesting topic. I think it's a topic that a lot of young people are talking about, interested in, especially amongst our students. People that meet in our program. Everyone's kind of at that stage in life where they're kind of thinking about who they want to be with and how should they meet that person.
Right.
So, this term Shidduch crisis, I assume it was not invented by a 23-year-old young woman or, like this is something I assume, I researched this, but I assume that it was probably invented by someone in the next generation, a bit older, looking out, down even at the younger generation and kind of, I kind of imagine with the glasses down, kind of looking down and, you young people, back in my day, like, we didn't care. We weren't so picky. We weren't so choosy. We didn't compromise, if the person had good midot and, their nose wasn't falling off their face, then, it's good enough, l'chaim, let's get married. But today kids, they're so picky, they're so choosy, they're not willing to compromise. To what extent do you think that that's valid, invalid, the whole term Shidduch crisis and everything around it?
Like I do think on one hand you shouldn't be choosy, but like it's also the biggest decision of your life. So I get, don't like look forever. You're gonna like lose. I don't know. You're gonna end up not choosing if you have like this a million option mindset. But on the other hand, like different people have different standards, and if it's not for you and you can't see yourself living with that or whatever it is, like you also have to know what your standards are, know what you're willing to compromise on and what you're not. Like maybe one thing for you could be really, so to someone else it could be like, oh, that's so dumb, like why wouldn't you go out with someone who, I don't know, has, I don't know, whatever it is. But if it's important to you, I think it's important to, yeah, it's also important to know what's really important. Like maybe if he's tall or short, doesn't matter. But maybe if it does, it does. I don't know, so.
In other words, it has to be kind of a balanced approach that
Yeah.
On some level, you have to know where you're not willing to compromise, but there are some areas that everyone should be willing to compromise. And so this term, Shidduch crisis, you think it's an unfair term coined by the older generation, or do you think there is actually a crisis out there? People aren't getting married.
There could be a Shidduch crisis, but there's a Shidduch crisis if it's like it's a people-made Shidduch crisis, and it could also be by the same generation saying, Oh, there's a shidduch crisis. Like, first of all, it puts pressure on people, and it's it's created a societal um, construct. Like, I think it's based off of like that girls are pressured to go out younger, and then they have to, and if they're constantly going out with older guys and getting married, then like there's more and more, I don't know, of that age, and then like at a certain point, like I don't know, they're not being set up as much or whatever. So there could be a shidduch crisis, but it's also created by this pressure and the whole situation.
There's a lot of factors I hear there.
Yeah. Like, it's a population, it's a statistical thing,
right.
But it doesn't have to be if there's none of that pressure. Like, a girl who's 24 could marry a guy who's 23 and it's not a problem, but she's not set up with a guy who's 23 either, or a guy who's 24. Like a 19-year-old is set up with a guy who's 24.
Right, there are several stories that talk about that specific issue. Do you think that women have it harder when it comes to shidduch dating than men do? Or that they also have
I think
challenges?
With the age thing, I think everyone has challenges, 1,000,000%, and it's not fair to say one person has it easier and one person has it harder. But in that age aspect, then for sure, yeah.
Like the women in their late 20s, early 30s, and going up.
Yeah.
Those are the women who are presented with the deepest challenges in the world that you've kind of painted for us.
Yeah.
That's definitely
also, like, a guy could like start going out when he's like, he feels more ready. Like, let's say he's 24, he's like, okay, I'm ready to start dating. Like a girl, oh, you're 18. I'm not ready. No, go.
You're ready.
Start dating. You'll never find anyone.
I think
you're more mature. And then like you say things like, oh, you're more mature. Your bat mitzvah's a year earlier than guys. They're just immature. Okay.
In that way, I think that is a strong part of the book, that you do give voice to that issue in particular, that women are pushed out early, and if they don't find the person that they want to be with, or the person that wants to be with them, and they get to be, 25, 26, they're already they're really looked down upon in a way that might be unfair.
Right.
So I have to say I miss learning with you and the group. And so I just wanted to bring a short text to discuss with you and to talk about it in the framework of shidduch dating. I'll put it in the chat so that those who are following along can see it. It's a medium quote from Rav Shagar, not too long. Rav Shagar was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Siach Yitzhak right outside of Prague, passed away unfortunately about 10 years or so ago. So he has a very interesting article called Love, Romance, and Covenant, where he sees really marriage today as going against the grain of the rest of the Western world. And here I have a little quote from it. The Jewish model of intimacy can be characterized as standing next to, rather than face-to-face with, the other. It is about partnership in carrying out the mitzvah itself. In the most profound sense, it's faith. A faith partnership engenders the deepest of intimacies, on the only intimacy that possesses the power to deliver us from solitude. Romantic intimacy, which is in essence an intimacy of ego and sexuality, cannot affect such a transformation. I like this quote because he does draw out a significant difference between, let's say, the Hollywood model of the movie model of dating and love and intimacy, and he really juxtaposes that to the Jewish model. Whereas I love this image, as an artist, I hope you appreciate this image as well, as the two people standing next to each other and looking in the same direction at this capital O other. In other words, there's a broader framework or a broader entity that me and my partner are focused on, and together we work to be involved together in that relationship, in that broader relationship that encompasses us, as opposed to what he calls romantic intimacy, where the two are looking each other in the eyes. Nevertheless, that even though they're looking each other in the eyes, that relationship has a tendency in its base form to tend towards my own sexual needs, my own love needs, my own self-exploration. Who am I in this relationship, right? As opposed
Right.
to who are we as a couple. So I like that. I'm not sure if that resonates with you or not. I'd love to hear if it does. And I guess my broader question, on this quote to you as well is, does shidduch dating accomplish what it's supposed to? In other words, however we kind of phrase it, whether as, staying together and looking at something or looking each other's eyes, or however, whatever image or idea we want to utilize, there is a distinction, I think, and an important distinction between dating in the Jewish religious world than dating outside of that. However, does shidduch dating get us there?
So I feel like, especially with this quote, seeing it, like when you do go on a shidduch date, even before you go on the date, you already like make sure you have the same values and want to lead the same life. So, which is kind of like the vibe of me and you against the world, me and you serving Hashem, me and you for this higher purpose, as opposed to me and you because we met and like I like you.
You're cute.
Yeah, you're cute. Let's go for it, I guess. Oh, we don't believe in the same things. Oh, whatever, it's fine. Like when you're going out and you know already beforehand that they want a similar house that you want, similar values, then it's much easier. Then you have to see if you could have that relationship where you can build that with the person. And then like you do need to have that basis in order to, I don't know, reach self-actualization and actualize. Like it's to reach your full potential. Could you reach it with them? Yeah. I feel like shidduch dating does target that, have that approach, which is nice.
I'm waiting for the but.
But no, I'm saying but no, there could be problems like with everything. But I think it is good to have that basis before you go out with someone.
In other words, you wouldn't say that the shidduch dating framework is broken per se, and that's not your intention of the book. But it's just to kind of poke fun at it, even though in a broader perspective, this is good. We are getting two people set up with each other who do share the same ideals, who in theory share values, right? And so once you have that base groundwork set, right, you have the possibility of a really good relationship.
Right. Like, I think that's the main thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That, like, if two people, like, that's also what the book is talking about. Like, so there's no problem with the shidduch system. It's just different things that come out as problems because of it, or like in it, like things that are broken maybe in it and how it works, but not with it entirely.
Right. And at the end of the day, look, we're all flawed. We're all human. Parents want their kids to get married. Girls want to get married, so they'll blind themselves to the person that's in front of them. Guys as well. And, you know, there's kind of this broader vision of what a marriage is that people do really want for themselves. And you know, I guess having dated in myself in both worlds, in college, you know, in the secular world, experiencing what that is versus being involved in the Orthodox world of dating and experiencing both of those worlds, I definitely appreciate that. I always felt like the possibility for stepping into a healthy marriage is there in a way that isn't necessarily there in the secular world because of that framework and groundwork of shared values and shared perspective on a certain level. And so they already have kind of an advantage to find the person. And then we're human beings, and there's all these other things and parents and pressures and, you know, cheap people who are cheap and people who are materialistic and that type of thing. And that just kind of adds into it. So beautiful. Yeah. I really appreciate that. I just want to switch to the crazy reality that we're living in that we talked about at the beginning. I saw something like, you know, if someone would have told me last year that there were more weddings in IKEA or grocery stores than there were in wedding halls, I would have, you know, thought that they were insane. But like we're living
IKEA, I didn't hear that yet.
Crazy time. Yeah, IKEA's open, it's bustling, so you know.
Might as well have a wedding.
Might as well, you know. You
it has the theme of the home. It's very nice.
A great place to start, Shalom Bayis. You have a port there. You can give a whole divar tour. You put the yichud room where the bed is. You know.
There's already everything set up.
Walk out with all of your dishes.
If you forgot a gift, everyone could just buy it on the way out. Have a registry.
World's gonna change. This is gonna be the theme now. Everyone's gonna get married to IKEA.
I'm sure IKEA would love it.
So, I'm just kind of curious from what you've experienced yourself or heard from friends. How has dating changed in this time period during the coronavirus, or maybe shitty dating or dating in general? Like, what are you seeing amongst yourself and your friends during this time?
Well, I either see people not dating because, you can't, or people trying to date like on the phone or like by Zoom, like getting set up and then dating. And it like, I think it takes a specific personality. And for two people to have that specific personality of being able to develop a relationship through the phone and through Zoom, that I don't know if it's for everyone. Like, because one, it's hard to create a relationship with someone you've never met. And also, like, you have nothing to base it off of. And you also have nothing going on in your life. Like, oh, so today, let me tell you all about it. It was exactly like yesterday when we spoke.
Like the cartoon that I saw you posted, what did you do all day? Oh, I helped out. I cleaned the dishes and the girl Netflix on the screen.
Yeah.
How much did I binge today? Right, so it gets a little hard to figure out what to talk about. I did see, there was like advice for dating during the coronavirus. So it was like, have a virtual coffee date. Have, like you fix the coffee and the other person fix the coffee.
Yeah.
Did it cross in there? So what you're saying is that would work for some people who, who could kind of bridge that gap, but other people, they're just gonna shy away from it.
Yeah.
I had a call from a student who I won't mention the name, but I thought it was funny because it kind of questioned dating etiquette during this time. In other words, double dating is something that probably is frowned upon in certain situations, right? In other words, especially in the shit up dating world, if you're going out with one person, then, I think you have a story, right, that deals with
right, yeah.
with the double dating. Right?
Yeah.
I remember that one because I had a situation like that in New York. It seems to be something in the dating culture that's kind of not, it's not, maybe 100%, us or forbidden, but it's looked down upon. But now, in this world, is it considered dating if you Zoom with a person 3 times a week? I mean,
right.
Has the etiquette of dating changed, do you think, now that, the
right.
situation has changed?
Also, my mother was saying how, like, it's important if you are going out with someone to create boundaries because, like, technically you could speak to them 24/7. And, like, one person could expect that and text. Another person could be like, I was just expected to, like, respond and, like, be constantly available. So, like, it is important to, like, kind of make sure you guys know you're on the same page. So like one person isn't like, oh no, they didn't text me goodnight, or like, I don't know. Like you have to understand like how much are we going to speak, because you're technically always available to be communicating in some way.
So it's like, I'm constantly getting texts from this person, and maybe in another situation, a non-pandemic situation, those natural barriers would be, during the workday or whatever it is, but in the situation that we're in, those things don't exist. So there can be unfair expectations in the situation where it might work out. Otherwise, you have to have proper boundaries. So, but what do you think? But what about double Zoom dating?
Oh, double Zoom dating.
Is that a term? I don't know. Can we create a
but
term?
Like, right, how serious is your Zoom? I don't know. Are you casually Zooming? The serious Zoom?
It depends what's happening in the Zoom, right? I mean, how we in the Zoom is. That's great.
Right. I guess the Zoom wasn't that great if you're, like, thinking of other people, Like, why'd you already make 3 Zooms if, like, if you're bored at the first one?
Would a person be, but if I heard from a friend that she was, Zooming with another guy, should I be, hurt by that? Or, can I expect the same thing?
Right. Like, I think, like, as with anything, like, if you're still looking after you've, like, I think there's something wrong. I don't know. I think there's something like you can't focus your attention fully on someone if you're also thinking about their options. Like, it's not fair to the person. Like, if you're giving someone attention, they're giving you their attention, you guys are going out, even if it's just on a half hour on Zoom, and you didn't tell them no, then yeah, you have a right to give them like your full attention. If you want to move on, like it's also all right. But
that's really more or less the same logic of not double dating
right,
in a normal
yeah,
context.
right.
So that
Yeah, I
extent.
still think it's the same laws of etiquette, I would think.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now here's an interesting question. Do you think coming out of the coronavirus that some of the stigmas that people had before about dating might fall aside a little bit, and oh my God, you're a living, breathing person. I'm so glad to be with another, live person. Let's get married. Do you think there's going to be a kind of a rush of engagements and marriages after this, kind of passes?
It could be like, I don't know, you tie them down for like 3 months and that's it. Like, we also, how long will this last?
Right.
Like,
So
if it's
the
like
longer
a year.
it lasts, will it be like a rubber band kind of effect where, the longer it lasts, the more, engagements we're going to see after this?
Or maybe people will like, okay, let's just go out for less time. It's fine. Like,
Right.
The world's coming to an end.
You're right. We're going to die of this pandemic anyway. Like, let's just,
I'm half a year older than I was before. Also, I was thinking about it, like, there's always that like pressure of like, what do you do? What don't you do? But I feel like because of the coronavirus, like there's much like less of that. Like people are more understanding, oh, I'm not working now. I lost my job. Like, I don't know, before if you hear that, it'd be like, okay, great. I don't know. But now it's understandable. Oh, you weren't in school.
Okay, great
okay.
means like see you later. Like okay.
No, like it's fine. Like no one has a job.
Now no one has a job, right? Then it would have been like, oh, very suspect, and calling it off. And now it's like, nobody's working.
Yeah.
So
or like, what were you doing the past half a year? Well, I went home from, I don't know, like in the middle, I went home from yeshiva. What could I have done? Okay.
So this is a boon for the unemployed. This is their chance to.
Certain things that are expected of people, like I feel like are less now because you have no choice.
Yeah. That comic that you put out, I thought was great, where, questions that come up during the coronavirus, where the mother is asking, so does the boy go to Minyan, right? So.
Yeah, what do I answer?
Right, like if yes, then he's, and then he's part of the problem causing the spreading of the coronavirus. If no, he's a schlepper and a bacher. So it's funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
I love that you captured that. You have a very unique way of kind of, even in your youth, kind of peering through and seeing through this, and exposing the humor of it, which I think is fantastic. I want to hear just a little bit. You said you would read us a story from your upcoming book, Shalom Bayis, hashtag Shalom Bayis.
Oh, yeah.
So this is hot off the press exclusive that I'd love to hear.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me first say, disclaimer, it's unedited still, first draft.
This is really raw. Okay, great.
Yeah. But I think you'll like it. Okay, I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay. By the way, my mother mentioned that you didn't call on Erev Shabbos. It was Sunday evening. We were unloading the groceries from the car when I remembered. It was 2 weeks to Pesach, and even though we were eating most of our meals out, we still had a lot to buy. Oh yeah, Miriam said as she unhinged the car seat to extract a sleeping Chaim. I got caught up on the phone with my cousin Sima, the one who just got engaged. She wouldn't let me go basically until candlelighting. She wanted all the juicy stuff on marriage. What's it like? Is it worth it? She's terrified, that poor girl. I laughed as I closed this trunk, arms laden with shopping bags. What did you tell her, to go ahead with it? I did. She smiled at me. I told her it's the best decision I ever made. I unlocked the door to our apartment as the plastic bags cut into my wrist. This apartment was ours for over 2 years, but still felt so fresh and new. I emptied the bags onto the small section of cleaned and covered countertops as Miriam let Chaim down into his crib. Then she was back and together. When she was back and together, we put the food away. You just know how my mom gets, I continued, rolling my eyes. These little things mean a lot to her. Of course, I'm going to put her first thing on my list. A week to Pesach, our kitchen was only partially cleaned. Miriam's business surprisingly had a lot of orders this week. She baked and sold boutique cookies. So we cleaned what we could and set up the table and the oven for her baking, resigning to the last-minute stress of catching all the crumbs, scrubbing all the surfaces, and setting the oven for a long self-clean. It's a big mitzvah to start your cleaning early, my mother said over the line. She was watching Chaim this week so that Miriam could work. I know, but what can I do? I sighed. We started today. Nobody wants cookies any closer to Pesach anyways. Miriam finished her last batch and did the counters. How is Chaim? What a darling boy. He ate some of my special eggie. I shifted uncomfortably. Miriam told me specifically to make sure my mom knows not to feed Chaim eggs or honey or tuna or bamba. He was 9 months old, and Miriam was hyper careful with what he ate. I once brought it up with my mom, who waved dismissively. She's a new mother. It makes sense she's worried, reading all that stuff on the internet and in the books. But I raised 7 of you and not one book, and look how you all turned out. Don't think I don't know what's good for your baby. I didn't dare mention it to my mother again. I'll pick him up when... It's funny because this is... Whatever, I'll tell you. I'll pick him up when I deliver the orders. I have to go. Miriam is calling me. She needs help mopping. We got this new type of mop. A Swiffy, I think it's called. Oh, I have one of those. Give her the phone. I'll explain it to her, my mother said. I went into the kitchen and put the phone by Miriam's ear, mouthing, Mom. Hi, Mrs. Reich. Mom. Miriam hastily corrected herself. My mother always insisted she called her Mom. I didn't know why Miriam couldn't get the hang of it. My mother was really close to us, always helping us out with Chaim and calling us to see how we were doing. But that's the hardest part of marriage, I knew. Taking two people from very different backgrounds and mixing them together. Sometimes it worked. A couple's lives meshed flawlessly. And sometimes it was like water and oil. I kept mixing, hoping for the former. Yes, of course, I'm using a clean rag. A pause. My mother spoke on the other end. Miriam replied defensively. I know. I need to do a deeper clean for Pesach. I just want to get the floors done now so it's decent. I'll do them again. Another pause, longer this time. Thank you, Mrs. Reich, Miriam said with a plastered-on smile. Have a happy and kosher Pesach. The second she hung up, she turned on me. What? I backed away. She said, I know how your floors can get a bit sticky. Your mother hasn't been here in 2 weeks and the floors were spotless when she came. Why did she say our floors are sticky? I shrugged and desperately switched the topic. Any cookies for me to taste? You know, in the name of the business, just to make sure they came out good? No, there are only 3 extra and they're for me. The next 2 days, Miriam was in a wild haste to catch up on the cleaning. Every time I saw her, she had a rag at hand and a different bottle of cleaning spray. Finally, she announced that she was done. The day of B'tikat Chametz, she put Chaim in his carriage and said she was going out. I can't stand to be in the kitchen a minute longer. I left chicken on the counter. It's for us for dinner. If you can throw something together. Of course, you need a break. I'll take care of it. The second she left, I realized the misunderstanding. See, I'd assumed she meant chicken. Like prepared chicken. Like I just put some potatoes in the oven for a quick side dish. Nope. Miriam left me a slab of thawed chicken legs. My thoughts raced. Mom, what's your recipe for chicken legs? The simple one with the oven? Why in the name of Shemayim do you need a recipe? Miriam needed a break. She asked me to prepare for tonight. I poked the semi-defrosted chicken with a fork. It can't be that hard, right? Hold on, I need water. Four hours later, the table was set and Miriam was back. I proudly served her a plate of chicken with a side of sweet potatoes. Do you like it? I pounced as soon as she took a bite. Miriam didn't speak. She stabbed a slice of sweet potato and bit in slowly. Is it fine? Is it cooked well? I tasted it before. I thought it tasted fine. More than fine, actually. I was quite proud. Your mother called me, Miriam finally said quietly. Oh, I smiled. That's nice. She asked why I don't cook for her son, Miriam said in an even tone. And then she burst. I don't understand. Why did you have to get her involved? Well, I just asked for a recipe. She thinks I'm a horrendous wife. No, she doesn't. I tell her every day what amazing food you prepare. Miriam glared at her chicken, her fork and knife clinking loudly against her plate. Hey, I wanted to say, I worked hard on this. It was actually better than half the recipes Miriam used. This tasted homier. Perhaps it wasn't the best time to mention to her to try it. Sorry, Miriam sighed. I'm making a big deal out of this. I know you didn't mean to complain about me. These things just stress me out. Let's just try to keep some things between ourselves. Our relationship was tense. I felt it. I was coming out in different ways, little arguments that would spur up, the chicken thing, the last-minute cleaning, heated discussions on who would take Chaim out. My mother said it might be because I'm home more. It was Ben Hasmanim, and we were seeing each other more than ever. But I knew things were tense for another reason. One that was not at all Miriam's fault, but I couldn't help blame her just a little bit. It was an intimacy problem. 3 weeks already we hadn't touched. A few nights before mikvah night, Miriam called with the dreadful news. I'm still unclean. Are you sure? I pressed. You can ask the rabbi, she said helplessly, but I'm almost positive. She was right, still unclean, so we waited longer, the gap between our mattresses creating a tangible rift between us. Did she see a doctor about it? My mother said on our daily phone call. She reminded, this isn't the first time it's happened. I just don't know how to bring it up with her, I groaned. I was at loss for women's things. My mother sighed. Do you want me to do it, Zeeskite? That would be wonderful, I sighed, relief spreading to my toes. My mom was a super mom. She could take care of anything. Miriam, we're going to be late. Are you ready? I called while tying my tie. It was Erev Pesach and we needed to get going if we wanted to get to my parents at a decent time. Miriam? She wasn't in the kitchen or the living room. The bathroom was empty, open and empty. Only our bedroom door was shut. Miriam, I called and carefully opened the door. The lights were shut and the shades drawn. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust and made out Miriam, lying flat on her bed, still in her schmata clothes. What's going on? We have to leave soon. I can't speak to you. Her voice was muffled through the pillow. I can't even look at you. I'm so embarrassed. What happened, darling? I turned on the lights and sat at the edge of the bed, as close as was allowed. She picked her face up off the pillow to say very clearly, I'm not going to your parents. I can't bear to look at your mother. How could you say that? How could she ask me about my irregular bleeding? Why does she know about that? I don't understand you. I know you two are close, but we're a couple. Just us two. Why is she always involved? She cares about you. She cares about us. Well, tell her to stop caring then. I dealt with this for years, but now you've crossed the line. I cannot stand the way you speak to your mother. Are you serious? I didn't know what to think. This was a grown woman. This was my wife. She was acting so immature. My mom and I talk. Who cares? You and your mom talk too. And you know what? It's a good thing to speak to your parents. Keep it of the aim. Respect your mother and father, the most basic Torah commandment. I talk to my mother like a normal person. I don't tell her every detail of my life, and God knows I don't tell her about us. I flinched. It was the first time I heard Miriam speaking this way, using God's name in vain. So you're saying I'm not normal for having a good relationship with my mom? I laughed incredulously. Miriam, I really can't respect you with the way you're reacting right now. You know I'm close to my mom. It's something I'm very proud of, and I hope you can develop that kind of thing with your own mother instead of putting me down. This is ridiculous, Miriam said. Leave the room. Get out, she yelled, and I didn't budge. Run to Mama. I'm taking Chaim to my parents. No, I said simply. Excuse me? You're complaining that our life isn't private enough, and all of a sudden you're willing to make the whole huge scene? We're going to my parents tonight like we planned. My voice dropped in degrees. If you don't accept my family, you don't accept me. What's that supposed to mean? It's all or nothing, Miriam. I got up and went to the door. You can't pick and choose. Me with my mother or nothing at all. A half hour later, Miriam emerged with red eyes, her long sheitel and a new dress. I am so upset with you, she whispered, as we took Chaim to the car. It was Nida. It made both of us tense. We argued so much more. It was the hardest part of being married, my mother assured me in the kitchen as I helped ladle the soup onto the bowls for Shulchan Aruch. Are you sure? I said, biting my lip. She barely spoke to me at all throughout the Seder. She needs more time, my mother assured me. I'll speak to her about it. Don't worry. That's it.
Yay, thank you. There's so much there.
This is also like parents' relationship involvement. They're not all like that.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you chose that one. I just watched Unorthodox a couple of weeks ago. So I think some of the same themes that are present there are also present in that story as well, as far as the male character telling the mother all these very, very intimate details, and the involvement of the parents deeply involved in their kids' lives, in their marital intimacy, even after the marriage. So great stuff, Penina. Thank you so much for sharing it. I want to give another plug before we pause for tonight. Here's the book, #ShidduchCrisis. You can find it on Amazon, Book Depository. They can follow you. How can they find you? How can they, beyond getting a hold of the book, you do a lot of really cool stuff on social media. So tell everyone.
Yeah, on Facebook or Instagram. On Instagram, it's at Short Shidduch Stories. I think you could just write #ShidduchCrisis and you'll find me. And also on Facebook. And it's on any online bookstore, #ShidduchCrisis.
And you're doing these great cartoons as well. Are you going to put together a collection of cartoons in a book
I was thinking of it. It just, like I always say, like, I don't have enough ideas. But then, like, I think of another one, and then I post another one. And I'm like, that's it. I have no more ideas.
It's a good excuse for people to find you on social media and to stay connected. And here it is again, #ShidduchCrisis, Penina Shtauber. Thank you so much for speaking with me, for sharing about your book, about yourself, about dating. This is a lot of fun. I needed a good laugh been very serious over the last couple of weeks, so this was really a lot of fun. And it was great to see you and to learn with you. I hope we'll get to do it face-to-face very soon.
Yeah,
But again,
me
I
too.
thank you so much, Penina. I wish you all the best. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for listening. And to be continued. We'll hopefully see you again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Penina. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.